Okay. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Please, can you say something to indicate that you can hear me? Yes, you can hear me. Thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome to this session. We honestly apologize for starting so late. Okay, let me start my video. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. We apologize for starting this late. The sessions are still ongoing at the moment, as we know. However, we will begin our own session right now. So thank you very much for joining us, and we will, we'll just delve right in. So, my name is Funmi Ikujenyo, and I will be your host today. Let me just give a quick rundown of what we're doing here today. So to give some context, why mentoring? What makes mentorship so important? Mentorship is, as we all know, the guidance that is provided by a more experienced person in whatever field that may be to enable the person being mentored become a better success. Why is it important though? Research has shown that quality mentorship can and does indeed enhance a mentee's chances in every single possible way. Many of us listening here today and watching here today may indeed also have mentors, so you understand this concept very well. And we also understand how important this process is to our growth and development. Now, why the emphasis on the Igbo Apprentice system? The simple truth is because it's a global success. Anywhere and everywhere you go, yes, I said global, anywhere and everywhere you go, you will find Igbo entrepreneurs in almost any corner of the world. As long as there are human inhabitants there, you will find an Igbo entrepreneur there. So we are here today to delve into exactly what makes this system the success that it is. Can this success be replicated? Can it become the standard for the entire country and maybe even other countries? What do we need to do to make this happen? That is the reason why we are here today. To do justice to this today, I'm not alone. Working at the back end with me, I have an amazing resource. His name is Wale Adeyemo. Wale Adeyemo is a consummate banker with over 12 years of experience. Let me share my screen. Yeah, thank you, good start. Okay, I'll be sharing my screen now. Yes, Mr. Wale Adeyemo is a consummate banker with over 12 years of experience in business development covering the public sector, MSME and consumer banking. He started his career with the now defunct Intercontinental Bank PLC before moving first to First Bank and then to Fidelity Bank. Then he moved to Diamond Bank as relationship manager in workplace banking before the bank's merger with Access Bank. Currently, he serves as the sector head for employees in value chain for Access Bank PLC, covering the Kano sector. He's a certified project management professional. He holds a BSc in finance from the Enugu State University of Science and Technology with a master's degree in treasury management from the Bayero University in Kano. Wale is passionate about finance and entrepreneurship, and he pioneered with his wife the Kayo Group with businesses in freight forwarding, logistics, cleaning, janitorial services with a turnover in excess of $1 million in the last 3 years. Wale is married and he's blessed with 3 boys. Now, I'll be introducing our panelists. To do justice to this topic with me here today, I have first and foremost, Mr. Bayo Adeyinka. Mr. Adebayo Adeyinka is someone that is very, very well known, especially on the streets of Twitter. He is an author. He's involved in mentoring and training. He's a published author with 3 books to his credit, and his 3rd book, 30 Career Lessons I Learned Along the Way, was released in December 2018. His numerous interventions and articles are very well known, as I said, in the social media space and published also by newspapers. In October 2017, he spearheaded a social responsibility intervention that led to the payment of fines and release of 27 prison inmates in Kirikiri Medium Prison, Lagos. He also led the Fund Lautech initiative, where together with a team of 4 people, they brought a national awareness to the plight of Ladoke Akintola University of Technology, Ogbomoso, and raised a whopping sum of 9.4 million naira through a crowdfunding effort that was donated to the university, and a spin-off also that provided internship opportunities for undergraduates while they waited for the impasse to be resolved. He owns a public school in Ibadan, and he has adopted for the past 3 years, amongst other social interventions that he's involved in. He pastors the Lagos branch of Caris Family International Church, and he's married to Abimbola, a school proprietor. They have a daughter. Welcome, Mr. Adebayo Adeyinka. If you are there, just say hello to us. Mr. Adeyinka? I don't know, can you mute? Okay. Yes, sir. All right, Mr. Adeyinka, I don't know if he's there, but you're welcome. Next up, in no particular order, we have Mr. Cheta, Nweze, who is the lead partner at SBM Intelligence. He has worked in numerous information technology and media organizations, key among them the African Times Network. He has been the chief information officer and managing editor of 234 Next, and he's the online editor slash creative technologist. He's an online editor slash creative technologist. He is passionate about writing and he maintains columns in Business Day, Financial Nigeria, and The Guardian. And he has published numerous articles and opinions in The Cable, Sunday Telegraph, The Nation, The Vanguard, Premium Times, Why Niger, and The Trent, all in Nigeria. His opinion pieces have also been published in Africa is a Country, and Al Jazeera, The Guardian of UK, Supersport South Africa. He's an expert in network design, management and security with a master's in computer networks and internet security from Middlesex University in London. Mr. Cheta, please say hello to us if you're online.
Hello, I'm online.
Okay, I think it's my volume.
Did you hear me?
Oh. Can you speak again?
Hello, I'm online. Did you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Bayo is with us again. Mr. Bayo Adeyinka, I introduced you earlier. Welcome again.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. I also have with us here Mr. Chinedu Okoro, who is the convener of the first e-commerce exhibition and seminar in Lagos that took place in 2015. He has spoken at an exhibition. Okay, speakers at that particular exhibition included representatives from Jovago and Kamudi. He holds a master's degree in research and policy from the University of Lagos. He's currently a qualitative researcher and writer and has interest in technology policy. He currently writes on and manages a technology and policy focused blog, www.nedu64.com. He wrote a highly incisive piece on this same topic we're talking about today, titled "What Makes the Igbo Apprentice model, Apprenticeship Model Tick, and some critical considerations before taking it mainstream." We would love to hear this from you today, Mr. Okoro. Welcome again to this session. Mr. Chinedu Okoro. Can you hear me? If you are here with me, just say hello. I didn't hear you, Chinedu Okoro, but we'll move on. Finally, we have here with us Dr. Chiefo, Ejiofobiri. He helps people from all walks of life find purpose and direction and fulfillment amidst the complex challenges of life. His educational exposure spans through several top-notch educational institutions, such as the London School of Business and Finance, IESE, China Europe International Business School, Columbia University, so many. He's a gifted author, a business mentor, a life coach who is widely acknowledged for his passionate drive to raise a new generation of value-driven and principle-centered Africans whose innermost desire is to live life by God's design, be it in family, be it in faith or in finance. He's a man of few words, but great deeds, and he has inspired thousands of people living in Africa, North America, and in the UK through his wealth of wisdom. He's a fellow of the Institute of Human and Natural Resources, the Institute of Strategic Human Capital Management, and the Institute of Chartered Portfolio Management. He is the founder and president of the ACE Foundation, through which he has mentored thousands of individuals who desire a better and purpose-driven life. Leveraging on current technological trends, Chiefo has also created an online global network of leaders and professionals from all walks of life called the Living by Design Community. He is happily married and blessed with children. His mantra remains, live by God's design and all shall go well with you. So you're welcome also today, sir. Thank you very much for joining us.
Funmi, can I
Thank
make
you
a
for
point
having
of
me here.
correction?
Okay, sir.
Funmi, can I make a point of correction here?
Yes, please.
I think you are mispronouncing it wrong by saying Chiefo. It's Chiefo.
Chiefo. Oh my goodness. I was told that
No. I think it's wrong. I think it's also wrong. The name is Chiefo, not Chiefo. Chiefo is an Igbo name for it is dawn, D-A-W-N.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for the correction, sir. Chiefo, right?
Thank you very much. That's a fair trial.
Thank you so much. So you're welcome. You're very, very welcome. And thank you so much for agreeing to join us today. We'll dive right in because our time is really, really fast spent. So I'll address my first question to Dr. Chiefo. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll address my first question to you, sir. We have heard a lot about this, this apprentice system in recent times, especially since Dr. Robert Newworth mentioned it in his TED Talk in 2017. Can you give us a brief background of this system? How did it come about and what exactly is its history?
Well, it will be difficult and challenging for me to tell you the origin of this system that is common amongst the Igbos. Common amongst the Igbos, also amongst the Jews, and has been adopted across various entities and industries. It is a traditional version of what we know today as an internship. The corporate world has tried to adopt some aspects of this apprenticeship culture known amongst the Igbos. We call it an internship program, which does not holistically embrace all the facets of this culture. But what makes this culture very successful among the Igbos is because it is weaved around the Igbo culture, the Igbo very traditional culture. And the Igbo man is known universally as a very enterprising person. And the enterprise, the success of the Igbo entrepreneurship system is weaved around this apprenticeship scheme, where or a tribe or amongst the always some prominent who has done very and as a result, his family members and friends present somebody from their family, either a child or a ward, and say, please, can I, submit this child to sit under your tutelage and learn to replicate the principles that gave you the knowledge you had in your business. And almost all the time, the successful Igbo entrepreneur says a yes. And of course, there is a
Sorry, Dr. Ejiofobiri, your network
there's understanding between him and the person whose child is taking on board his enterprise. And usually they are apprenticed for about 7 years. During those 7 years, the apprentice, is meant to study the habits and the values and the principles and the practices that enabled that successful entrepreneur thrive in that business that he does. And the entrepreneur also is dependent to run his business for him. Can you hear me? Did you lose me? Hello, can you hear me? Hear me
Actually,
now?
lost you for a while there. Your network is really poor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Better if you
Can you hear me now?
video.
Hello?
Maybe if you switch off your video, sir, it will
Should I take off the video?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Much better.
Can you hear me now?
It's much better, sir.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I don't know where you lost me, but do you want me to start all over again?
We actually lost you a long time ago, but
Okay. Okay, let me give it a try again. So,
okay.
sorry, I failed to observe due protocols. I have my senior colleague Bayo here with us. So, Bayo, I salute you. It's quite a privilege to sit on the same platform with you this evening.
Thank you very much,
and,
Thank you.
and everyone else who's on the panel with me. I celebrate you. Thank you. Okay, so I was saying that the Igbo apprenticeship system called is difficult for me to exactly say at what time it started, but it dates back to the origins of Igbo culture. And the system is such that in almost every small Igbo family, there usually always is one very accomplished entrepreneur. How that happens, I really cannot tell, but it is difficult to step into any small Igbo family that there is not one very successful entrepreneur. And so what usually happens, man wants to have either his son or a relative who he wants to sponsor, to go sit under the tutelage of this successful entrepreneur, usually over a 7-year period. During that 7-year period, the apprentice is supposed to understudy the values and the practices and the lifestyle and the business secrets of this successful entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is also expected to be generous with information and to expose this apprentice of his to the things he had done that gave him the mileage in his business. And over that 7-year period, the apprentice is expected to exchange for the experiences acquiring from this mentor, his time, his loyalty, and his services. So he runs all the errands, and it's expected that in those 7-year period, he's not going to steal from his boss, from his mentor, and he's not going to cheat him, and he'll remain devoted, because anything that affects his devotion or his loyalty or his commitment or makes him suspect during that time period could totally disqualify him from accessing the guarantees that is meant to cash upon at the end of the contract period. And that guarantee is an unwritten understanding that after his years of service and studying and learning from this man, at the end of those years, he's supposed to part with some cash and the business, or how successful that entrepreneur is. So he parts for some cash, but a cash that is sufficient and adequate to enable the apprentice start off on his own. Sometimes the mentor helps him acquire a store of his own, helps him equip that store with goods, pretty much sets him up in life. The world of sales, like someone did for me at some point. Sometimes this doesn't always happen. When it does, and systems, traditional accountability systems weaved around the Igbo culture that makes the mentor and the entrepreneur accountable to this person. And except where the mentor is able to advance very credible reasons to show that the boy hadn't really served him or hadn't really exhibited the kind of character and candor expected of apprentice over the 7-year period. Well, of course, custom and tradition have systems that enable a peaceable settlement between the two parties. And then when that happens, the boy is set up and he starts off his own. Sometimes too, I've seen instances where the mentor even sees part of his market share. I know a particular man who runs electronics in Enugu. When I say, gave one of the branches of his stores to this apprentice of his, and gave it to him, and then ceded to him, and then the supply chain attached to that store. He just completely severed the relationship with everything that had to do with that store: goods, supply chain, market share, everything. And then that was Google to start that up. So that's in a nutshell, honestly speaking, what the panelists will have a lot to say in that regard as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that breakdown, sir. So from what I understand, it's something that has started for a very, very long time and usually spans a period of 7 years, where a particular family gives someone that is successful, gives someone that is successful one of their children, kind of to nurture and grow, to exchange values, experiences, and in exchange, the boy gives his time, his loyalty, and his services. And at the end of the stipulated period, the young man gets cash, and the mentor sets him up basically in life. So thank you so much for that short breakdown of the entire system. So now I'll ask Chinedu. Chinedu Okoro, you wrote an article a while ago that discusses what makes this system tick and some critical considerations to look at if one wants to take it mainstream. Can you please share some of these considerations with our listeners? Hello? Hello, Mr. Chinedu. Chinedu Okoro. Can you hear me? Okay, I don't think he can hear me for some reason. I think we'll come back to that question later. Let me ask Mr. Bayo Adeyinka, if we look at the western region of Nigeria and perhaps also the northern region of Nigeria, do we have any parallel systems in place here? Are there any similarities or differences between these systems and the one we're talking about, this Igbo system? Is there anything that is almost the same with what we have there?
Thank you very much, Funmi. I hope you can hear me. Thank you for having me here. Let me also acknowledge my colleague, Chiefo, Ejiofobiri, and everybody who is here today. Yes, we have a lot of similarities between the Igbo system and what also obtains in the southwest part of Nigeria. As a matter of fact, if you look at the 2019 movie that was released by Kunle Afolayan, that movie Mokalik, that I believe a lot of people have seen, it actually depicts what happens in the southwestern part of Nigeria. In that movie, he took his son to a mechanic workshop, to go and be an apprentice for some time. And at the same time, was also going to school. This system has been, something that has been present with us in the southwestern part of Nigeria for a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, my own father practiced it. He's an engineer. He has an engineering workshop where he repairs high-duty vehicle engines, caterpillars, and all the likes. And then I grew up in an environment where we had about 10, 15 apprentices living with us part-time. That was the condition, the environment under which I grew up. These were people who would go to work with him during the day, and then come back at night to serve and to live with us. So they ran errands, you know, clean the house, wash clothes, wash the car. Of course, in return, the master, who happened to now be my dad, would of course give them food, okay, provide accommodation for them. And they did this for about 5 to 7 years. So this is very similar to the Igbo system. Then after the 5 to 7 years, they do what we normally call in Yoruba land freedom. They call it freedom. So freedom, they call their families to celebrate their graduation from that system of apprenticeship. So yes, we have a very similar system in the southwestern parts of Nigeria. However, the areas where we have dissimilarities, just like Chiefo mentioned, that the master will set up the apprentice, often seeding maybe a shop or giving him money to be able to set up. We don't have that system in Yoruba land. In Yoruba land, of course, once you are free, you have done your freedom, then you go and set up on your own. There may be very little mentorship after that. And of course, both of you will often struggle for the same market share. I think that is where we have some contrary views to that of the Igbo system. So we have very similar situation in the Southwest, although at the moment, you don't see a lot of it in practice that like we used to see it so many years ago. You know, so many years ago, anybody who was an artisan had apprentices that you were mentoring. Whether you're a mechanic, you're a fashion designer, you're a plumber, you know, whatever that you do, except from maybe the professional jobs, you had people who were learning under you, that were mentoring, and that would, after some years, they graduate to be their own people.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very concise. So the main difference really from what I hear is that in the Igbo system, the mentor gives the mentee something to start with.
Yeah, Funmi, are you still there?
In that system, once you've done your freedom, that's the end. You can go and set up however you like. Am I right? Okay, I think so. Okay, Mr. Cheta Nweze. Now, since the Nwa Boys mentoring system has to a very large extent worked in mentoring entrepreneurs to success, is there any way that we can improve or formalize this system by changing the notion that it's a path usually followed by the poor and uneducated? The way people usually think about it is that it's usually the poor people, the uneducated people that go into this kind of thing. Is there any way we can change this notion?
Yes, there are ways that this notion can be changed, and it's by storytelling. So when you want to tell stories such as that, you look for examples of people who had some basic form of education and then made it, went into one boy and made it a success. So as an example, a lot of stories are told about, say, Chikasin. Chikasin was a one boy, same thing as Innocent Chukuma Innocent. And then Cosmos Maduka Kostaris. They went through this system, but they went from a very limited educational background. Hardly anything is ever told about slots. The founder of slots, Nnamdi Ezigbo, was or is let me not say what, I've not killed him. Is an engineer. He studied electrical engineering, graduated, did his NYSC in Guinness, Nigeria, in Obakran in Lagos, and was actually looking to join an oil company as of 1998. But we all remember the position that Nigeria was in 1998. It was pretty difficult to get a job. So he decided to go to the computer village and started basically did apprenticeship for someone. He was learning how to repair computers, learning the trade, learning to repair, learning to service, buying and selling. And as time went on, he set up his own system. So here's a graduate who went back to the one boy system and then learned something, and then via his mentor's contacts was able to establish deals and now has 43 outlets across the country that are doing well, very profitable, have very good corporate representation, so that we are not it's not something that people look at like it's just something that Alaba boys do. If we want to use those derogatory expressions, Slots has very good B2B representation. It has customer satisfaction, and they are able to get access to institutional advantages. Now, another thing that will help in formalizing and improving the perception is things such as the fact that the Harvard Business Review is publishing, is going to publish work on the Igbo apprenticeship system. Is being led by somebody called Ndubisi Ekekwe. So formal studies by high-end institutions are taking place, and this will help to improve the prestige of Imoahia. And when prestige grows, then more people will be interested. Remember that it took someone, and I think that's an unfortunate aspect of where we are as Nigerians, but it is what it is. It took a foreigner talking about Imoahia in public before people started to show interest. Before that, it was seen in a very negative light. So storytelling and advocacy is very, very important in shifting perceptions. And given where we are in terms of unemployment, Imoahia and other systems like it, if they can be formalized, will be very, very invaluable in helping to reduce the number of unemployed people or underemployed people that we have walking around in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cheta. That was, I never actually knew that the owner of Slots went through that system. That's so enlightening. And it's amazing how much he has made of himself now. I mean, Slots is practically a household name coming from that, from such a system. Thank you so much for that. I want to check, is Chinedu Okoro, are you online now? Can you hear me?
Yes, please, I'm online.
Okay, thank you very much. I was asking you that you wrote an article a while ago that discussed what makes this system tick and some critical considerations that we need to look at before we can take it mainstream.
Yes.
Can you share these considerations with our listeners in a few minutes, please?
Oh, okay, thank you. So the article, I was looking at, okay, how the system can move with the times, you understand, because businesses are changing every day. The landscape is changing. How we finance businesses, for example, we hear a lot about equity financing. We hear a lot about angel investors. We hear a lot about venture capital and all that. In the Igbo system, these things are quite foreign to them. What they know is you come in, you do the work, we have an understanding and agreement for a period of time, and you do those number of years, and at the end of the year, you get settled. But there are some shortcomings with that. For example, inflationary pressures. If you are made a promise of, let's say, 2 million, let's say in year 2000, that's in 8 years, that's 2008, you're going to get settled with 2 million, a shop, and all that. What happens to when the currency loses value, when inflation is into this 2 million? So there ought to be a kind of like an evaluation to find out what can we do.
Sorry, please, can you raise your volume? I can't.
Okay, so we have to look at what can we do to accommodate these changes that are unforeseen when these agreements are being signed. We also have to accommodate factors like, for example, what Cheta mentioned about the CEO of Slots going into apprenticeship briefly before starting his business, despite being a graduate. So what about graduates that just want to learn a trade, but they're not looking forward to you giving them some money? They are just okay with learning and moving away. What can we work out? Is it kind of like going or coming around during the holidays? For example, I started visiting my uncle's businesses or shops since, let's say, age 8, 9, 10. So I'll leave about all the way to Omaha during the holidays, then go back after the holidays. And yes, this is a family business, but I was learning. So we need to find a way to accommodate all that. We need to also find a way to protect the person learning, for example, because if you are learning, how do we protect you from, let us say, the master changes a line of business? How do we protect you from, let's say, the master dies halfway? How do we protect you from, let's say, you are done learning that line of business, is no longer fashionable? You can see what the internet is doing now. The internet is taking away gatekeepers, it's taking away gatekeeping. So a lot of people now sell without even, or do this business well without even learning it or learning the trade. YouTube and all that, courses online, people learn this thing. So what will now be the edge that, for example, someone that has gone through this for like 8 years have over the person coming with a degree? For example, we can't say that there were not some people going through the phone business in the market with their bosses, and from nowhere the slot man came, inserted himself into it, learned it, made something out of it, even before the person that did not, have a proper university education. So we need to now look and ask ourselves, how can we do this? And there are a few ways that I think I can do that. People can be mentored from afar. Mentorship must not be you sitting down under my tutelage morning to night. You must not live under my roof for you to learn from me. It can be intermittent. It can be arranged. It can also be done without you getting settled. So that's what me I think. Then businesses are also incorporating technologies, for example, because if you go into the market today, if you go to Alaba, like someone mentioned, you barely see businesses. It's just of recent, most of these businesses do is use WhatsApp or use GG. And so how can they take it a top notch or a step further by, let us say, build a system, have a CRM, have a proper system that do this, businesses that actually use these tools while also not losing the essence of the MYH system, that's the apprenticeship system.
Thank you so much for that. I'm having some interesting questions here. One that is quite interesting for me is this by Moji Dumoye. How can the Unwa boy model be extended to the female gender? This is interesting. Pastor Chiefo, can you do justice to that question?
Okay, thank you. I do think there are variants of it ongoing, maybe not as structured and intimate as what we find amongst the male folk. Well, because with respect to the male folk, it's often long tenured. Somebody is submitted to your mentorship canopy over a long period of time, during which you literally serve him with everything you have. You give him your whole time, and so on and so forth. It is not that amongst the women folk, but there are shorter variants of it ongoing, where, as a matter of fact, I think the women have really picked up recently over the past couple of years, and there are, different variants of apprenticeship systems ongoing amongst women. And one of them is what is universally across various tribes and communities and cultures known as the Isusu system. Without realizing that Isusu system is actually an apprenticeship system, in the sense that there is a dominant member of that system who the rest of the members of that small clan converge around person's skills and expertise in a particular area of business. The rest are contributors of savings, while the dominant person in their midst is the experienced hand in that line of business. And they make those contributions, which more or less form some pseudo equity in the business of that person who is experienced in that line of business. And they trade together. They are accountable to each other, and then they learn the trade of the dominant person in that enterprise. At the end of the day, they make their profits and they part ways and they share the booties at the end of the period. So, like I said, it is a variant of it, and that is not to say that that it does not entirely it's not entirely inexistent. Situations where also women also submit to. I know, for example, in Nnewi, where I come from, where I hail from, I know women who subscribe to a longer tenured apprenticeship system. I know women who understudy spare parts, motorcycle spare part sellers. I know women who also understudy mechanics. You know, they learn how to dismantle cars, rebuild it from scratch, and so on and so forth. And then a particular woman actually has a lot of women who have now submitted to her, you know, to be mentored by them over that period. So women have, you know, entered into that terrain, and you know how passionate women can be when they get involved with stuff. And I do believe that for the women folk, it's going to take center stage for the women, especially in the kind of economy we have now.
Thank you so much, sir. There's this other question that's, I mean, brings us to the main reason why we're here today. Now, get the name. Oluwatobi Olasheinde is asking that how does this apprenticeship management arrangement relate to volunteering as we have it today? And then the second question is, can this be done in every profession, or is it just for entrepreneurship? I mean, we're talking about taking it mainstream and into corporate Nigeria, so to speak. So how does a young professional in the upstream oil and gas industry, for instance, benefit from this kind of thing? I will ask Mr. Adebayo to please answer that.
Okay, thank you very much, Funmi. When you talk about volunteering, I believe it's a bit different from what we're talking about. Because for volunteering, it may just be for a short space of time, and it is at the whims and the caprice of whoever wants to volunteer. However, this apprenticeship system we're talking about, it's a deeper form of mentoring, okay, where you are there for a minimum number of certain years to gain the requisite experience for you to be able to start up, and then you begin to contribute also to the economy. And then you do the same thing also for others. So I think it's a bit different from volunteering. Now, talking about migrating this particular practice to the corporate space, one of the ideas that I have is a situation where the NYSC program, okay, you know, can be tweaked a bit. Maybe when people are arriving at the camp, at the NYSC camp, as they arrive, they are matched together with mentors who are able to identify their skills, possibly maybe part of what they have learned on campus, that you match them with mentors.
We've lost you, sir. Mr. Bayo, we can't hear you anymore.
Other areas.
Okay, you're back.
Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, it's back. It's back now.
Oh, okay. So I believe that this particular system can be tweaked right from the NYSC stage, you know, then after some few years, when they have been matched together with mentors, and then the federal government comes in, you know, to be able to settle them. So we can look at this particular format and migrate this traditional model, okay, to the corporate sector. And I'm sure that they do it in Germany. It is being done also in Switzerland. They have this kind of models of apprenticeship in various sectors of the economy, and it has been working for them for so many years. All we need to do is just to look at the various regions of the nation and look at the peculiarities of those regions, and then be able to adopt it to suit, you know, whatever happens in those regions. And I'm sure it can also work here.
Thank you so much for that, sir. But my question to that is, is it really viable to say that, you know, when someone finishes NYSC and then is placed with a particular company, that the company can actually set the person up afterwards, like the way it happens in the Imo Ahia system? Can that, as in looking at Nigeria the way it is, do you really think that is viable, really?
Yes, it is viable. If the government brings a structure, for example, anybody that participates in that kind of system, you get a kind of tax rebate. Okay, you get some incentives. You are incentivized by the government. Okay, it is something that we want to encourage a lot of people to go into it. So there must be a structure. Okay, the government can come in, try to build a structure around this from different regions. Okay, let us incentivize whichever companies will get involved in the form of tax rebates, in the form of waivers, maybe some kind of preferential treatment in some areas, access to government contracts and all that, so that we can encourage, you know, that's the way to create employment. Okay, by the time all these people, you set up the people you have mentored, you are able to bring your bill to the government. The government now says, okay, from this your bill, we are writing back certain taxes, or we're giving you certain access to, you know, government contract or things like that. I'm sure it's something that can be worked out.
That's fantastic, because I mean, I think it's the fact that the mentor actually helps to set up the mentee. That I think that is what makes, you know, this particular system very, very viable. So if the companies can actually get that, you know, I think it will make it will work. I think it should work. Thank you very much for that. Someone is also asking, Jide Lawrence, has there been cases where the apprentice learns enough to begin to compete with his master? Why has this model of apprenticeship worked better with the Igbos as compared with other tribes? Cheta, Nweze, can you please answer that?
The entire basis of the model is for the apprentice to hopefully do better than the master. The cultural basis is that we want our sons to be greater than us, and your apprentice is, in many respects, your son. So it gives the mentor, the master, as it were, a lot of pride if his apprentice at some point surpasses him, especially given that it's something that he can actually quote and unquote boast of, that I made that guy. It's that guy got to where he was because of the hand that I gave him, and he's expected to give a hand to other people who eventually should do better than him, and that's where we lift each other up over time. It's the mindset of that we should all be better than our parents, and our great-great-grandchildren should be better than us at some point. Society should not be static. Now to the second part of that question, or before I go into the second part of that question, I want to give an example. In the book, Things Fall Apart, and I always point to Chinua Achebe's trilogy, Things Fall Apart, No Longer as Eve, and Arrow of God, as even though they are fictional, they are very good measure of Igbo history. So if you remember, Okonkwo, the son of a very poor and unsuccessful man, went to Dingba to get some seed yam, and Dingba said, I will give you because I want you to do better than me. That's a very good example of what the model is. Now, with regards to the question of why this has been more successful in Igbo land than in other parts of Nigeria, I would say two things. Number one, culture, and number two, there was a need for survival. So culture, and this is not to denigrate other people's cultures, but Igbo culture tends to encourage people to go far and beyond. We are not satisfied with just sitting in one place and waiting for things to come to us. Then, deep at the heart of the Igbo culture is the concept of onyekwe chiekwe. Basically, when you want something badly, even God will agree with you. And that's why the Igbo man will move anywhere and fears nothing. He will go somewhere and do what he can to achieve what he needs to achieve. Now, for the second part of it, which was the need for survival, remember that Igbo land was destroyed by the end of 1969 and the beginning of 1970, which is the end of the Nigerian Civil War. And Igbo land being destroyed was not just about physical destruction, but also the economic destruction by the post-Civil War settlement of £20 for every Igbo person who brought money back regardless. So as a result, people needed to come together and push themselves, lift themselves up. This, I think, in human history, this is the most recent example of an entire race of people pulling themselves up by the bootstrap. So that need for survival made Imuahia paramount in getting, because people who had made it had no other choice but to let a lot of boys come into their shop. Sometimes they will have 19 boys at a time in their shop, all sleeping. They won't even have space in their house. They will have all of them in their shop, sleeping in the shop 24/7. When the shop closes, they will lock themselves in. But eventually, those boys learned the tricks of the trade and they pulled themselves up and pulled those after them up. So two things, culture and survival, enabled Imuahia to become very, very successful over the course of the decade and a half after the Civil War ended.
Wow, that's I particularly love that proverb you said, that when you want something badly, even God will agree with you. Wow, that entered me. Okay. So my follow-up question to that will now be that it seems like one thing that could be a deterrent to this really happening is many people that these days seem not to want the person coming after them to be more successful than they are. There's this inherent streak of selfishness, I think, that wasn't alive in those days. You know, as you have said, it has a historical basis, and then the Igbo people needed to survive, so they pushed each other like that. But now I think, I don't know, do you see what I'm saying, Chinedu, Okoro? Do you see that?
Yes, yes. So the thing now is, like that said, what made it successful? Culture and survival, yes. But then, like he also mentioned, people came on board, or people helped people because it was a sort of like enlightened self-interest. Because I know that if I help the person, I have one less mouth to feed or to help. Do you understand? You can't hear me.
It's
Can you hear,
fluctuating. It's
can you hear me?
fluctuating.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better, but you need to
Oh,
keep the volume.
oh, okay. So, like you said, culture and survival. So then people helping people was actually based on what I would call enlightened situation, because they know that if I pull this person out, this person is going to literally pull one other person out, or an entire family out of poverty and all that. So what they did was, let me help this person stuff every day, giving a handout to a family. Do you understand? But again, now a whole lot has changed. If you, for every new apprentice you train now, you are basically training your competitor. I don't know if you can hear me. Now, once you train somebody in the market, let us say you import, let's say you import car tires, for example. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm
Chinedu, I can.
Yes. Okay, you can hear me.
yeah.
Okay. So now, the whole idea is essentially is when you train somebody as your apprentice, down the line you basically have trained your competitor. All right. So, but now in the new business practices, now people sign a lot of contracts when they want to train you. They might say, for example, lawyers. A law firm might tell you, if you train with me, if you want to leave to another law firm, it has to be a particular radius away from here, or 20 radius away from this particular office where you are working. But then you find people training people, and few blocks away inside the same market, they have their own shop. They actually equip their own shop for them, and they compete. So I think it's this abundance mentality that also helps to make the system work, because you train your person, just if a few blocks in the street away, this person is selling the same thing that you're selling. Some customers might even prefer to do business with this same person now before you, the master that trained them. But I think one major ingredient that made the system or that makes the system work is a delayed sense of gratification, because when you come on board, you forget everything. You forget comfort. You forget looking so good. You forget the pressures that surround you. You forget your family to an extent, because do you know that, interestingly, that if you are with your boss, with your master, it is only when he permits you to travel home that is when you travel home. It is only when he permits you. If he's not traveling home for Christmas that year, or maybe the kind of business you do is a seasonal business and your season is, let us say, December period and all that, you guys are not going home. You won't go home. You even need permission for you to go home. They will give you the deadline when you have to come back home. So that sense of you denying yourself of all these whole comforts, you might not see some of your close friends. There are some things you can't have. Not that you look what you haggard. No, of course you look good. You eat well. You have clothes on your back, but you will not. You deny yourself a whole lot. I think that's one of the things that made the system to work. Do you understand? And again, which is also another factor people forget, is because you get into this thing very early, the pressures of your youth or of life they are yet to get to you. So you don't have much care about acquiring things, owning things. You are just focused on that thing. So you see some people getting into the trade, let us around, let's say 19, 18, 17. I know people that start at even 15. You understand? They live with their master. So imagine somebody getting, earning his freedom, let us say around 21, 22. At 22, I was just 300 level in the university. Do you understand? You don't have much pressure. You just need the basics to move on. So that's one of the things that makes it work compared to other places whereby you actually come, like somebody mentioned, I think it was Bayo that said, you come, they train you, you pay for training and all that. It's a switch. Do you understand? Here you come in when you don't have the cares of life, when your needs are few or you don't even have needs. And then of course, in addition to the two major factors that Cheta mentioned, which are culture and survival, because you also know that if it goes well for you, you're about to bring somebody again from home to the city, pull your family and one or two other people out. So I think that's that.
Thank you for your submission. Now we've talked about, Mr. Adebayo talked about, the fact that if the government were to, give some sort of incentive to companies, it will make it easier for them to buy into this kind of system. Now, can we look at the possibility, because we can't always say that this is what the government will do or this is what the government will not do. Can we look at the possibility of, I don't know, angel investors, venture capitalists? Is it possible for them to actually do something around this kind of system, where I finish my NYC, for instance, and I want to work at, I don't know, cost shares, and I want to do, my apprenticeship in quotes there. And at the end of it all, maybe a particular venture capitalist can come and take up that burden of setting me up, maybe for a particular, I don't know, a percentage or something. Dr. Chiefo, how do you think this can work? Is there a way that we can, wrap this up that it can work?
If you don't mind, please, can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Okay. I said that earlier, Mr. Adebayo spoke about the possibility of if the government were to come in and give some sort of incentive to companies, that more companies would be willing to take on mentors and then help set them up at the end using the same Imwahia system. Now, we can't say what the government will do, whether they will be open to this, and it's such a long, the whole process will probably take a long time. But is it possible, if we were to look at angel investors or venture capitalists taking up that burden of taking people who go into mentorship with companies and then helping to taking up that burden of setting them up? How do you think this can work? how can we, make this work? Is it possible? Is it something that venture capitalists or angel investors can look at?
Yes, I think so. As a matter of fact, the collaboration of government and angel investors and funding institutions is what would make the apprentice system become institutionalized and just the perfect way to replicate a new generation of successful entrepreneurs across the length and breadth of the country. Because what you see in practice is a situation where government sets up schemes that have political coloration, in the sense that schemes spring and people are given money. Some youths, young people are given money, and it's tagged all kinds of names. But these people who are beneficiaries of these fundings do not have any expertise whatsoever, no experience, and oftentimes the money goes down the drain. It's forgotten. It's all massive investment in a cesspool of losses that we haven't had any success story out of all the billions of naira that has been spent supposedly on young people. But the collaboration that would work and will be perfect. And of course, a recent development in the Igbo apprenticeship system that supposedly is threatening the effectiveness of that system is that unlike years back when there were traditional accounting systems that guaranteed that the mentor lived up to agreement, those systems are weakening with time. So the reason why some young Igbo people don't even want to get into this apprentice system any longer is that there's no guarantee that after 6 years of serving a master, you are certain you are going to be paid the things you agreed you're going to be paid. There's not even any guarantee that business will survive those 7 years. There's no guarantee that inflationary trends and impact on the foreign exchange, on the value of the currency will make even what you are looking up to worthwhile at the end of the time. So, but if there are governmental bodies, if there are institutional
we lost you, sir. We can't hear you, sir. Hello? Wow, okay. I think he's gone off. So we'll just wait for him to come back, and then I'll direct my second question, my next question to, my last question actually, to Mr. Adebayo. Someone is asking that SMEs are the major drivers of growth in many economies of the world. The government can identify SMEs and MSCs and give them, incentivize them to producing more or replicating themselves. Do you think this is viable? Do you think this is viable, sir?
Oh yes. I guess that's similar to what I mentioned earlier. But beyond even the government incentivizing all the SMEs or MSMEs or corporates to do this kind of to replicate this kind of system, I also think it behoves on a lot of companies to begin to look at this as a form of corporate social responsibility, where apart from donating pitans, maybe doing boreholes and all that, some of the things we see around, maybe some of these major companies need to begin to create clusters around the country where this kind of apprenticeship model can be replicated. And people can actually be set up, it can be tracked. We can actually know how much employment has been generated, has been created, the kind of value addition that has come to the economy. And we can begin to say that is the real corporate social responsibility from a lot of these companies. So yes, SMEs, corporates, middle-tier corporates, a lot of companies, even so businesses can begin to look at this Umuahia method and begin to replicate it. Maybe first in form of clusters across the country. When I talk about clusters, I mean a group of similar companies coming together, to be able to pull, their resources together and do this in various clusters, maybe some in the Southeast, some in the Southwest, some in the northern part of the country. I'm sure by the time they begin to gather maybe the critical mass together, the federal government will get involved, create a structure around it, and then maybe we can have some kind of respite in mass unemployment in the country.
Thank you so much, sir. So some people have been raising their hands for a while. So I'll just give a few of them the opportunity to say a few things. Jide Lawrence, you've been raising your hand. You want to say something? You can unmute yourself and speak. Are you still there, Jide Lawrence? Okay, I don't believe he is. Mandy N, are you there? Mandy? Okay, did you guys just raise your hand and then forget that you raised your hands? Olumide Omoworare. And David Olajide.
Yes, hi.
Okay, David.
Yes, can you
Hi,
hear me?
David. Yes, I can hear you now.
Hello? Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for the session. It's been great.
Yes, thank you.
So just to, my question is very straightforward and direct. I just want to know, particularly to Mr. Bayo, yeah? I want to know, how do you think in a professional light, this can be sort of amplified? Because it looks like it's all entrepreneurship, right? That sounds like just one facet. And I'm thinking, can we go full scale with this? Can we think about other sectors, of the country aside from just business? How do you think this can be sort of modeled,
Thank you very much, David, for your question. Is anybody willing to take that up?
Okay. Thank you so much, David. This is Bayo. Yes, I believe beyond entrepreneurs, beyond artisans, this can also be replicated across various sectors. For example, when you're talking about professional firms like lawyers, okay, we have people who do their pupillage there. It's a form of mentorship, okay? And formal contracts can be, drawn up for these people to serve for a number of years, learn, go through the process of mentorship, and then, of course, these chambers can help them to set up their own practice. So I am sure the same thing can be replicated to accountants, and other form of, people who are major players in the economy. So yes, it should and it can be replicated, beyond just the entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much for your answer, sir. Femi Adewi.
Hello.
Olumide Omoworare, yes.
Yes, can I make a contribution?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. There are two things that I observe with this system, because this is a very beautiful system and something that can deliver a lot of results. But there are two issues that threaten this system. One is the financial burden and uncertainty that is imposed on the master at the end of that apprenticeship. Now, the second thing is the threat of the problem of saturation that an industry can experience when this system is being practiced. You find out that where this system has been successfully deployed, it had led to an oversaturation in the industries there, spare parts, computer accessories, phones and stuff. So, and there is also that financial burden placed on the master, which sometimes due to maybe import restrictions or FX, foreign exchange restrictions, he might not be able to meet that settlement, which brings up a lot of grudges with the apprentice. So two things that government can help to do is to take that burden off the master. Let them bring people that are experienced, just like one of the speakers said, that a lot of people come out, they are not experienced, and that government gives them money, but they are not experienced. So let government set up masters in the industries, different industries, not necessarily one, different industries, and let the government foot the financial burden on those masters, but let the masters be in charge of training people. Now, they can now attach consultants to those masters in different industries. Those consultants can now give structure to the apprentice. When the apprentice is done with his practice, with his training, the consultant can structure the companies those guys will form and give them goals and targets. Then the government can also give them incentive that, okay, this is the target that the consultant has given this company for this year. If you meet it, you get a grant from us. And by doing that over and over in many different industries, you can rapidly generate employment all over Nigeria. That's just my short contribution. Let me
Thank you so much, Olumide. Thank you. That was amazing. Okay, Jide, are you there now? Scott Onyekachi. Are you there? Nope, he's not there. Michael Oreke. If Michael is there.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Michael. Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you very much for this very, very relevant topic that you guys have taken up. I just want to add that I think, one of the challenges the system has, that's the Imoahia system has, is that, fine, we say Nigeria, we like certificates a lot, but at the same time, I think it may be a needful addition to the Imoahia system because it's a pretty informal system that relies on only the experiences of the owner of the business. But if we're now going to say that graduates and people that have gone to technical schools are going to impart or going to be put through a similar system, there has to be some form of paper at the end of the day or certification that says that this person has passed through pupillage of Mr. ABC and that he has learned X, Y, Z things. Because it will be difficult to quantify what any of the apprentices has learned, especially if the person has already gone through some formal setup in education. And it's also pertinent to know that all our learning is not only classroom-based. A lot of our learning in life is experience-based. Because this system we're talking about, if you look at the German system of technical education, what normally happens is that they do.
Looks like we lost him. We lost him. Okay, I think our time is fast spent, even though we started quite late. But I'm seeing a very interesting question here. That is there any form of support that can be given to help an apprentice who doesn't succeed in the business? Bringing this into the corporate context, which we are looking at now, that is there any, I like what the previous speaker was talking about, his submission, which was that there should be a form of quantification to what the person learns while going through the system. So is there any way that, can you hear me? Can't hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Is there any way, if someone goes into this business, he finishes his mentorship cycle, and then he goes into the business, and then the business does not succeed, what can a person do? Is there any way that we can look at, helping such a person to, I don't know, pick it up again, or is that just the end for that kind of person? Cheta Nweze, please help out with that question.
Well, from my own knowledge, it's pretty brutal. There's really no, and this is me speaking with from a very limited perspective, having discussed it with people but not having experienced it myself. When people and unable to make it through the system. They are quote unquote discarded, basically seen as a uboge and left to their devices, or some may just remain at the doldrums for a very long time or for the rest of their lives. And that comes from a lack of from basically, because it's completely private, it's very, very capitalist. And capitalism in its purest form doesn't have time for social social safety nets, as it were, in its purest form. So systems like here, which are completely private driven, tends to go like in that direction, where there's no safety net. If you are unable to pick yourself up, or if the business fails, then you are more or less on your own. It's something that can be worked on if the system is formalized, but the system will have to be formalized first before you talk about providing social safety nets for people who go through it. It has to be formalized, and there will have to be government backing. That's the only way I think that you can have social safety nets involved.
You're right. Let's hope that the work that Mr. Andubise Ekekwe is doing will help to formalize this as soon as possible, so that we can have a system in place for this to happen. I would like to ask for final contributions from my panelists as we begin to round up. Let me start from Dr. Ejiofobiri. Can you say a few words as we round up, please?
Okay, so I of course want to say a big thank you to Wale, but this is what I have to say as a final remark. It's the apprenticeship system isn't just an Igbo enterprise. It dates back to someone I consider the most successful mentor that ever known in history. And the reason why I say so is that there is the only gap I see in the apprenticeship system, which he covered up in the system that he was able to invent, is the fact that at the end of the apprenticeship system, I think the biggest gift that a mentor will give those he trained is to give them equity in his business. That usually is not the case. They go about and they start all over again, having to build their own brand names. But that was what this Jewish rabbi did differently. And when it was done with training his own apprentices, he gave them his name. And he gave them equity in his name. And that is what made them outstanding successes as they went about doing their own business. So I believe those you have trained should be able to run a franchise of your business. You should give them some equity in the enterprise. And that keeps you invested in what they are doing, invested in their success, invested in their future. Until such a time when they come up and say, okay, no, we're done, we want to start up on our own. That, for me, I think, is what makes our police system pretty much effective.
Thank you so much, sir. If you could please just drop your social media handles in the chat box. Some people have been requesting that they would like to follow you on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, if you are there, if you're active there. So please just drop them so that people can follow you. Thank you very much. Final remarks from Mr. Adebayo, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Funmi, for having me here, and Wale, thank you. It's been a very great opportunity and time here. Now, I'll take it from one of the people who remarked about the certification of this kind of system. I totally agree, but I want to also move it a little bit forward. Now, the system has succeeded largely in the Southeast up till now, but we cannot continue to do the same thing and expect different results. human beings, we're evolving every day. As a people, we're evolving. There are a lot of more people who are going to school who don't really want to go into this kind of system again. And we know this system has worked so far, and we need to be able to attract different people to be able to take advantage of this system for their financial freedom, for the economy at large. So what I would also suggest is to kind of bring an incorporation of a kind of curriculum development. You know, if you are into spare parts, there must be something like a curriculum so that we can know that it is standardized. Okay, everybody knows that you have gone through A, B, C, D, E. Okay, and you know about those things. If you're into phone repairs, there is a kind of curriculum that everybody has to go through so that we know it is standardized. That knowledge is standardized. So I think we need to begin to evolve into those areas where there is the incorporation of curriculum development of this Umuahia system that can now be migrated across various areas of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, sir. I mean, it will be amazing if that can be done, because even for someone who wants to hire a graduate that has gone through that system, you know, you'll be able to know exactly what the person has learned and what values he will bring to your organization. I mean, it would be amazing if that could be done. Chinedu, Okoro, can we have your final comments, please?
Okay, yes. One is recently some schools have been setting up what you call it now, entrepreneurship centers, if you've noticed, and it would be good those schools are or those centers are manned by people who have actually run a business. You understand? Instead of teaching them theories, that's one. Then when they set them up, the students, the students, since they are the learning institution, the students can now, it can now serve like a little bit of a hub, like, you know, a meeting point between the students and the people that run businesses to come in and mentor them. What it now does is that they gain best of both worlds. They are in school trying to earn their degree while also in touch with, let's say, the people coming. Then these same people coming, there has to be a little bit of room for them to say, okay, you know what, you have done well, you have shown some interest. I noticed that you want to learn this but you are still in school. You can actually come to my place during your sessional holidays or long break or even during the ASU strike to come and learn. Do you understand? Then again, I think at some point with some verifiable data or something, any student that goes through this, any experience gained can actually be recognized as job experience. So you don't leave school and someone is now telling you to go and manufacture 6 years job experience somewhere. So if you are in, let us say, University of Lagos, and you have an entrepreneurship center and you have an established person who has been running a business, come in to say, okay, you know what, I can mentor you people from here. Let me monitor your progress. You keep in touch. When you're on break, you can come and do this at my place of work or my shop or my office or whatever. And when you finish school, you must have accumulated to let us what could account for, let us say, 1 year or 2 years job experience, let us say, in packaging, tire or whatever, or shirts or fabric, production or whatever. So what it does is it also helps employers to scale this whole hurdle that comes with this person doesn't have job experience, is a fresh graduate, is a greenhorn, I don't have time to train this person. But again, secondly or finally, somebody was saying something about having the government set up consultants, set up. Sincerely, if you understand in the process, and I think Cheta mentioned it, one reason why the Igbo apprenticeship system has not really scaled forward or scaled out wild the way people have been expecting is because it's sort of close-ended. They don't like interference. They don't like people outside, government agencies, bodies, coming to interfere in their businesses. So if you suggesting this now will raise a lot of red flags in the system, like government wants to take my business, government, even the venture capital thing. So, but I think what the government needs to do is to find a way to participate without finally dragging down or pulling or stopping the progress that is being made, because business is different. The market keeps changing. The climate is always changing. So that mentioned something about you're not even sure if the business is going to be around in the next 6-7 years. So imagine government coming and bringing consultants to give you a target. Someone has been in business for like 35 years, and suddenly you're giving them a target for helping their own business. I think the person setting the terms should be the person that is actually helping. The person saying, you know what, let me pick up 1 or 2 graduates or 1 or 2 boys coming from, let us say, Smedan, for example. I'm helping them. But you now coming with a consultant, giving them targets, asking them how do they do this, how do they import, which hotel did they stay when they were in China, when they went to import these things. When I'm not saying these are procedural, they are good processes, but when you come too close with your escapism and your bureaucracy, you scare away everybody, especially, and if it goes wrong once, you lose the whole progress that you've been making so far. So we are making progress, but so yes. So if we can look at the entrepreneurship thing, if we can look at entrepreneurship centers, if we can look at letting this experience again count as part of job experience, so that it can also reduce unemployment and all that. So that's my take for now.
Thank you so much. As in, I think that's the same thing that C-Mark in the chat is trying to say, that we can't just bring in something foreign and plant into the system. We will scare them away. You know, we have to understand the indigeneity, if I can use that word, of the system, and then we'll wrap what we want to do, how we want to scale it, instead of just coming in with technology and all the other highfalutin ideas. Understand the indigeneity, again, I use that word, of the idea, and then see how we can work around that. Otherwise, it will become something foreign and people won't accept it. Thank you very much for your submission. Finally, but not least, Mr. Cheta Nweze.
Well, the other panelists, especially Chinedu, have said a lot of what I had in mind. So I'll dwell on that, especially the last part of Chinedu's submission, to expand it a bit. One of the key things is trust, and this is not just to the Umuahia system now. This applies basically to Nigeria as a whole. We must understand, and even though it may not sound very nice to us, but we must accept that we live in a very low trust society. Nigeria as a low trust society has been a low trust society for close to half a millennium now. And it's because of various things that we did. So if you want to, the government is seen, even though people will not admit it, but the government is generally seen as something that you hide away from rather than you embrace. And it comes from the fact that we've not had outcomes that have been favorable to the population of the country for a very long time, whether it was under the colonialists, whether it was under the first set of civilian leaders, whether it was under the military, or whether it was under the current set of political leaders that we've had since 1999. Outcomes have not been favorable. So as a result, people do not want to engage. So before anything is done with regards to government intervention, which based on what I said the last time is actually necessary, especially if we are to have a social aspect to the Umuahia system, we will need trust to be built. If we don't build that trust, then forget it, it's not going to happen. And the first step towards building trust is what I said in my first submission, advocacy. There will need to be a lot of advocacy. There will need to be a lot of studying to understand, and the advocacy helps people to break down those barriers. Once those barriers are broken, then we begin to see a difference. But if we don't do all of that at first, then forget it, it's not going to happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your commitment to this. I will have Wale Adeyemo just give the vote of thanks, a few final words.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you to our panelists, Dr. Chiefo, Mr. Bayo, Mr. Chinedu, and Mr. Cheta. You know, for me, one thing stands out about this whole system, and the fact that scarcity is an illusion. Because contrary to what we learn in conventional business schools, that you have to maximize the market share. Here, you see somebody training another person and relinquishing a part of his business to another person. And at the end, they both or they all do well. So scarcity is an illusion. But beyond what we have said here, I think we can continue discussion on our social media handles and everywhere we go, and see that this whole thing is something we, as a country or as a people, as a nation, we truly embrace it to say that, okay, our economic situation really improved. Thank you, everyone. We do not take your presence, your time for granted. We are really honored to have you. Thank you for sharing this day with us. Thank you for the time. Thank you for everything. Our participants, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. As I said, the conversation continues on Twitter, their social media handles. You can also tag the platform Nigeria on Twitter also as you are continuing the conversation. Thank you so much and God bless you. Have a fantastic day. Bye.